You weren't a hero, not to them anyway. Just a quiet girl in a hoodie, walking a borrowed dog through the plaza like everyone else. That's what they saw, what they thought they saw, until the loudspeakers crackled to life and said a name no one had spoken in years. Corporal Hayes, gear check for Delta Op. The sound cut through the morning hum like a blade through still water. Coffee cups froze halfway to lips. A jogger stumbled to a stop mid-stride. Somewhere, a barista dropped a spoon that clinked too loud against the tile. But she didn't flinch, didn't even blink. Just stood there, leash in one hand, sunlight on her face, like she'd been waiting for that voice all along. If you still believe that service doesn't end when the uniform comes off, that honor can live quietly beneath civilian clothes, then like and subscribe, because what happened next deserves to be remembered. It had been an ordinary Saturday, the kind where the world runs on autopilot. Maya Hayes, 28, had promised to dog sit for her neighbor, an easy favor for an easy morning. She'd even joked about it. Just me, coffee, and Charlie the golden retriever. No drama, no deadlines. But life, she learned once upon a time, has a way of hiding storms in the calmest skies. She strolled past the plaza fountain, one hand wrapped around the leash, the other cradling a paper cup that read Hazel and Company. Coffee house in fading print. The air smelled faintly of roasted beans and spring rain. Music from a street violinist floated across the square, soft, content, utterly unaware that in 10 seconds the world would stop pretending it understood her. Charlie tugged slightly at the leash, nose buried in the grass, oblivious to the strange, static hiss that crept through the plaza's overhead speakers. No one noticed at first. The intercom system was ancient, used only for lost kids or parking announcements. But then came the voice, grainy, authoritative, echoing through the open air like a memory pulled from a different life. Corporal Hayes, report to gear check for Delta Op repeat. Corporal Maya Hayes, Delta Op readiness check. For a heartbeat, time held its breath. Heads turned. Conversations faltered mid-sentence. The violinist's bow paused mid-note. The plaza, once a soft blur of Saturday chatter, had become a theater of stunned silence. Everyone looked toward her. The young woman with the coffee cup. The girl next door. The one who smiled politely but kept to herself. Maya froze, not in fear, but in recognition. That call sign. That voice. The way he said Delta Op with the clipped rhythm of old military comms. It pulled her straight back to a desert long gone, to radio static and the low hum of helicopter rotors beating against dusk. Her eyes flicked to the loudspeaker above the cafe awning. It was just an old PA system. Impossible. Yet somehow, she could feel the weight of the message pressing into her chest like gravity remembered her name. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Wait, did it just say Corporal Hayes? Someone whispered. Like military? Another voice. Is she in uniform? Maya's hoodie and jeans answered that question easily enough. But something in her stillness said more than any patch ever could. Her stance wasn't casual. It was composed, shoulders squared, jaw set, the posture of someone who'd learned to stand tall even when bullets flew. Charlie sat beside her, panting lightly, as if waiting for a command. She reached down, fingers brushing his head. Easy, buddy, she murmured, voice calm. But her heartbeat wasn't. It had been 6 years since anyone called her by rank. 6 years since she'd been Corporal Hayes. 6 years since she'd promised herself she'd never respond to that name again. Then a memory hit. A sandstorm roaring over a checkpoint, her headset crackling, the same voice shouting. Hayes, Delta's pinned. Gear check and move. She'd moved. Without hesitation. Without fear. And now, standing in the middle of a city plaza holding a coffee cup instead of a rifle, that same call had found her again. A man near the fountain chuckled nervously. What kind of prank is this? He said, but no one laughed. A teenage boy pulled out his phone to record. Yo, did anyone else hear that? She's like a real soldier or something. The murmurs swelled, curiosity tilting toward awe. Maya exhaled slowly, her breath trembling in the light. Behind her, Mrs. Linton, the neighbor she was dog-sitting for, appeared, jogging across the square with her purse clutched tight. Maya, what's happening? Did they just say? Yeah, Maya said quietly. They did. The older woman blinked. But you never said you were in the army. I'm not, Maya replied softly. Not anymore. A hush rolled through the onlookers. The cafe staff stood frozen behind a counter. Someone muttered that the Plaza PA hadn't even worked in years. A security guard tapped at his walkie-talkie, brow furrowed. Control. Oh, was that our system? Static. No response. Then a voice. Negative. Kiosk PA's offline. Power relays disconnected. Maya felt it then. A shiver of déjà vu, cold and electric. The same untraceable comms frequency that once saved her unit's life, now somehow whispering across a city square on a lazy Saturday morning. She wanted to dismiss it as coincidence, but the hairs at the back of her neck said otherwise. Charlie barked once, sharp and alert, as if sensing something unseen. Maya's grip on the leash tightened. The Plaza's digital billboard flickered. For a moment, the screen went black, then briefly flashed an emblem. Delta insignia. Her insignia. Faded, but unmistakable. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered, "Is that military?" Another voice, "That's classified stuff, right?" Maya's throat tightened. She'd buried that part of her life deep, along with the nights she couldn't sleep, the letters she never sent, and the faces she still saw when it got too quiet. But something in that announcement felt deliberate, like a door cracking open from the other side of time. She turned her face toward the morning sun, her reflection faint in the coffee shop window. To everyone else, she was just a girl out for a walk. But to the ones who once served beside her, the ones who'd vanished into shadows, she was still Corporal Hayes, the last to sign off before the signal went dark. She didn't say anything, didn't explain. She just took a slow step forward, past the fountain, the leash slack in her hand. People moved aside, parting instinctively. Maybe it was the way she carried herself, calm, precise, unhurried. Or maybe, deep down, they all sensed what she'd spent years trying to hide, that she'd seen things most of them couldn't imagine. As she walked, the loudspeaker crackled once more, softer this time, almost fading into static. Delta Op, stand by for confirmation, then silence. The sound hung there like the last breath before a storm. Maya didn't look back. She didn't need to. Because sometimes, the world finds its heroes long after they've stopped looking for themselves. And that morning, under a blue sky and the echo of her old name, Maya Hayes realized something she hadn't dared to in years. Some legacies don't retire. They just wait for the right moment to remind the world they're still standing. And as the whispers followed her down the street, she smiled faintly, half to herself, half to the ghosts who'd called her name. "Message received," she murmured. Still standing. Always. The Plaza never quite went back to normal after that morning. Even as chatter returned and coffee machines hissed again, people kept glancing at the loudspeakers like they expected them to speak once more. Maya, though, didn't flinch when they did. She just kept walking Charlie through the market street, her eyes distant but alert, the way soldiers scan rooftops out of habit. Her neighbor trailed beside her, still trying to make sense of it all. "Maya, I don't understand," Mrs. Linton whispered. That voice, it sounded official. Maya smiled faintly, the kind of smile that hides an ache. "It was," she said. "A long time ago." They stopped near a bench, and for a moment Maya's reflection in a store window looked split between two worlds, civilian and soldier. She crouched down, unfastened the dog's leash for a moment, letting him sniff a patch of grass. "Back then," she murmured, almost to herself, "gear check meant someone was counting on you. You didn't miss it. Not once." Her voice trailed off, caught somewhere between nostalgia and unfinished business. In the distance, a gust of wind stirred the flag above City Hall, and suddenly she was 22 again, sand in her teeth, headset pressed to her ear, the world reduced to coordinates and breathing. "Base, confirm Delta position. Static. We're cut off. Need evac. Now." And then her own voice, calm despite the chaos. "Copy that. Hold the line. You're not alone." The flashback hit hard, vivid enough that she had to steady herself against the bench. She hadn't heard that call sign in 6 years, but it had lived inside her, buried under job deadlines and apartment noise, pretending to be gone. It wasn't. It had just been waiting. Mrs. Linton noticed her silence. "You okay, dear?" Maya nodded slowly. "Yeah, just remembering people I owe." At that same moment, the security guard who'd been fiddling with his radio earlier jogged toward them. "Ma'am," he called, "you might want to see this." He held out his phone. The Plaza's CCTV feed showed the moment the PA activated, but in the playback, no one was at the control booth. The switchboard lights had flickered on by themselves. System wasn't even connected to main power, he said. We checked. Maya studied the screen, her jaw tightening. It wasn't a system, she murmured. It was a signal. By mid-afternoon, whispers had turned into rumors. Someone said she'd hacked the PA herself. Another claimed it was a prank by veterans groups. But those who were there, the ones who saw her posture shift, who heard the way her breath steadied when the call came, they weren't so sure. There was a gravity to her silence, the kind that doesn't come from pretending. It comes from remembering. As the sun began to dip, Maya found herself back near the fountain. The plaza was quieter now, shadows stretching long across the cobblestones. She stood alone, hands in her pockets, eyes fixed on the reflection of the speaker above. For a long while, she said nothing. Then, softly, "Delta Op, if that was you." She let the rest hang in the air. "You found me." Behind her, someone watched. A man in a gray jacket standing by the far archway, military short hair, calm eyes. When she turned to look, he gave a single nod before disappearing into the crowd. For the first time in years, Maya Hayes didn't feel like an ex-anything. The past hadn't come back to haunt her. It had come back to remind her she was still part of something bigger. And somewhere, miles away, another speaker crackled softly to life. Delta units confirmed. Awaiting final member. The next morning, the sky over the city broke in quiet gold. Rain had passed in the night, leaving the streets damp and gleaming, every puddle reflecting the world upside down. Maya stood at her window, coffee untouched, the dog asleep at her feet. The world outside looked peaceful, but peace, she knew, was a fragile thing, especially when it followed her name through a speaker that shouldn't have worked. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw it again. The plaza, the faces turned toward her, the static, that single command calling her back into a life she'd promised to leave behind. By 9, she was back at the plaza. Curiosity? Maybe. Or maybe something deeper. The same instinct that used to wake her seconds before the comms lit up. The air was cool, and the fountain still ran, its ripples masking the faint hum of a city waking up. Nothing looked different. Yet everything did. The maintenance crew was repairing the same loudspeaker from yesterday, shaking their heads. Weirdest thing, one of them said to his partner. Wire was fried. Completely disconnected. That system couldn't have broadcast anything. Maya lingered a few feet away, listening. She could almost feel it. Whatever signal had reached her wasn't about sound. It was memory. She turned to leave, but the soft growl of an engine stopped her. A black SUV pulled up near the curb, the kind with military plates and tinted windows. The doors opened in near-perfect sync. Out stepped 2 officers in dress uniform, one older, one younger, both walking with the measured precision she recognized instantly. The older one called out, "Corporal Hayes?" It wasn't a question. It was confirmation. She froze for just a heartbeat. No uniform, no insignia, no reason, officially, for anyone to call her that again. And yet, hearing it spoken aloud, something inside her straightened. She faced them fully. "I haven't been that in a long time," she said. The officer's expression softened. "That doesn't expire," he replied quietly. "Neither does service." He introduced himself as Commander Ruiz, once attached to a unit she knew by number, but never by face. He explained they'd been running diagnostics on archived encrypted systems, a sweep through legacy delta frequencies. "Most are deadlines," he said, "but one lit up yesterday morning. A voice print match to your last recorded transmission." Maya blinked. "That's not possible. Those channels were buried years ago." Ruiz nodded. "We thought so too, until the system pinged your call sign, through civilian infrastructure, right through the Plaza PA. A chill rippled through her. "So it was real," she whispered. "Not a malfunction." He smiled faintly. "The old net remembered you. We figured it was time we did too." Behind him, the younger officer stepped forward, holding a small case. "Delta teams gathering next month. Reunion, memorial, call it what you will. You're the last one who hadn't responded." He handed her the case gently. "We figured the message might find a way to reach you." Maya hesitated, staring at the case. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside, her insignia patch, perfectly preserved, and a thin silver coin engraved with coordinates she knew by heart. The desert. The night the evac came through. The night she'd thought was the end of it all. "I didn't think anyone kept this," she murmured. Ruiz's gaze held steady. Some things we don't lose. We just wait for the right moment to remember them. Around them, a small crowd had started forming again, bystanders recognizing the woman from yesterday's viral clip. Phones lifted discreetly. Whispers rippled through the air. That's her. The Delta Corporal. The announcement girl. Maya exhaled slowly, closing the case. She wasn't sure whether to laugh or cry. I was walking a dog, she said softly. That's all I was doing. Ruiz's eyes warmed. Sometimes, Corporal, that's how the world reminds you who you still are. For a long moment, no one spoke. The hum of city life returned, the low roar of engines, footsteps against pavement. But around Maya, it all felt quieter, sharper, as if sound itself bowed in recognition. She thought of the ones who hadn't made it home. Faces blurred by dust and distance. Their voices still lodged somewhere deep inside her chest. She looked down at the leash in her hand, then back at the officers. What happens now? She asked. Ruiz smiled. Now? You live your life. But if you ever hear the call again, you answer it. Not because they need you, because you always will. Maya nodded, a single, quiet motion of acceptance. She extended her hand. Firm, steady. The commander shook it like equals, not ranks. Then he turned and walked back toward the SUV. As the vehicle pulled away, Maya stood there for a long time, staring at her reflection in the fountain's rippling surface. The hoodie and jeans still fit her life now, but the posture, the calm, the discipline, those never left. Behind her, people still whispered, curious and awed, but none dared approach. She didn't need their questions. She crouched beside Charlie, running her hand through his fur. Guess it wasn't just a walk after all, she said with a small smile. The dog wagged his tail, oblivious to the legacy tied to his leash. The loudspeaker above her flickered once, just once, before going dark for good. And in that moment, Maya Hayes understood that not every ghost wants to haunt. Some just want to salute one last time before fading into the static. She rose, slung her bag over her shoulder, and started walking home. The morning light stretched long behind her, and as she crossed the plaza, her shadow fell against the cobblestones like the outline of a soldier still on duty. The world had moved on, but somewhere deep in the circuitry of forgotten networks, her name would always live, etched between frequencies, waiting, ready. Corporal Hayes, Delta Lop. Still standing. Always.